You guys ready? All right, we are back. We had an issue. Our TVs in here were all of a sudden back off on us. First up, I believe we have via Zoom, so board members can see you guys on screen, Diabetic Care RX LLC. For our board members, you have a copy of an old amended MOU with Diabetic Care RX that set out the limitations on exactly what they could actually fill, dispense, send into the state based on some previous, I guess, national action that happened on this company. They had a request to release them from the MOU, and with that, I will kick it over to them to address the board.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your time today, and we appreciate the concession to allow us to meet you via Zoom. We did get to meet you in person this time last year, so we do thank you for that. My name is Phil Q. I'm the President and CEO of Patient Care America. That's who we're doing business as John mentioned, under Diabetic Care LLC. With me today, I have Bob Smith, our General Counsel, and Eric Tomczak, our Director of Pharmacy Operations for our company, who is also duly licensed here in Arkansas. When we met, I think John gave a good summary. There had been an MOU from years earlier from prior management. It had nothing to do with anyone that represents the company or has represented the company in years. But for actions that happened with prior management, I have been the CEO since October of 2020, and a pharmacist myself, and we came before the board last year to try to ask about just going back to full utilization of our license. There was a lot of good discussion and a lot of support. We've had no actions or sanctions against our licenses here nor anywhere else in the other 50 states or Washington, D.C. Continue to have that same standpoint, but as a concession, or not a concession, I think just a compromise last year, was our first ask was we were embarking on being able to deliver bundled medications to dialysis centers, which we currently serve the dialysis centers providing their IDPN and IPN nutritional therapies. And the board granted that and said, we'll do it, give it a little time, see how that goes, and then we can come back in a year or so and discuss about just eliminating the MOU altogether. So we are thus back after a year. Our bundled services to the clinics have gone very well. We dispensed almost 100,000 prescriptions for this new enterprise, 400 just under 400 into Arkansas this year. No issues, all patient specific and everything going well. And we are getting the final inspection next week to become URAC accredited, because we acquired a transplant platform about a year and a half ago, and we would like to be able to start dispensing our specialty meds across the rest of the nation once we kick this off, once we get our accreditation. So thus we are before the board today to ask for your consideration to allow us to have full utilization of our license in our state. I think we've demonstrated and continue and will always continue to demonstrate good faith to always do the right thing. And I think we've demonstrated we have done that and complied with the board. That's probably a long-winded summary of what we're here for, but I'm trying to just, kind of tell you where we're at and what we're asking for your consideration today.
I think that the part you're talking about expanding meds, you guys already understand that cannot go to the site of infusion. It's direct to patient only on any other shipments other than, I call it the capitated, but basically the bundled part that goes into the dialysis clinics.
Understood. And everything we dispense is patient specific. So.
Yeah. When was your last inspection in your home state?
Eric, I think it was December.
So December. Like 2 months ago?
Yes, sir.
And that was mainly inspected because in your facility currently, You're licensed amongst most states, and in most states, are you already doing some specialty? You're trying to expand to that?
We're planning to expand to that, John.
Okay. And mainly in the,
I'm sorry.
I was mainly in the kidney treatment area.
That would be our first foray on the specialty side. Yes, we have some relationships with pharma manufacturers specific to the transplant drugs. That would be our first foray. Yes, we are very focused on the renal sector.
Yeah. We don't see any recent action in any other states. I think you guys had to go through a whole bunch of this with a whole bunch of states based on old action that happened in the company. And was it like 5 to 10 years ago, I want to say?
Yeah, I think the settlement was 2019, so seven years ago. But for actions that occurred, I think in 15 or 16. We weren't, none of us were there, but that's my understanding of the dates.
Board members' questions? I mean, basically their request is to be released from the MOU. It was only allowing them to do the dialysate and related covered or bundled payment option things. In those instances, we do allow dialysate that are patient-specific dialysate issues, and they're bundled products to go that some of the vitamins and stuff to go to the dialysis clinics for patient delivery, basically, since they have to receive their dialysate there on site. The stuff that we're talking about, I mean, it was a fraud issue many years ago, but it was still something that I think made the board nervous enough that they were comfortable with the dialysis stuff while they were still forming or repairing some of their other stuff and getting ready for accreditation. I'm sure we want to see their most recent inspection. They may have already sent it as part of the renewal process, and I just haven't seen it. But otherwise, we'd want to see that.
Happy to do that.
Anything I missed, Dr. McCready?
And you feel sure you're about to get URAC accredited? It's not quite gone through, or is it just in the final stages?
This is the final inspection. We've been working on this for a little over a year and a half. Yes, ma'am. I mean, we're nationally accredited and everything else, but you know, this is the last one we're striving for right now. And I'm very confident that we will get that. The team in place runs a gold standard pharmacy. Very proud of them.
It's up to you guys.
Do we have to take a vote, take a motion, or?
It would take a motion, a vote of the board to basically release them from the MOU to remove that restriction.
Okay.
Make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
And you know, they pointed out to our staff, and we went back and watched, and the board did tell them they could appear by Zoom if they came back. Otherwise, they would be here in person. So it's no disrespect to the board at all on their part or ours. You guys literally told them they could do this. So they pointed out to us when we went back and checked. They're like, yep, they're right. They were told that. All right. Well, guys, we'll put this in a letter and shoot it to you the next few days. We're in meetings today and tomorrow, but we'll get it to you. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And John, just one final part. One, thank you, the entire board, and we will continue to uphold our part. We will send you a copy of the last state inspection, whether it's at hand or not. We've got it. We will go ahead and send it. Just cross that last T for you.
Sounds great. I appreciate it, guys.
All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your help. Have a great day.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
All right, they'll clear off there. Ready for your 115. All right, Dale, coming up, man. I think we've got his application. And if you will press that button that says push, it'll turn green, which means go for us. And we'll have you introduce yourself and we'll kind of kick it off. There you go.
Okay, my name's James Liddell. I'm at Carly.
Hey, in your the board members have all this on our, can't remember what to call this. It's not an iPad, but it's like an iPad, basically our little tablets. And in tab, I just saw it, 5, there's several things. A short explanation of a long issue is that Dr. McCarley is here. He has submitted an application to open a new pharmacy in the state of Arkansas where he's concentrating on doing some non-sterile compounding. Back in the day, he had Cantrell Drug. I worked right across the street from Dell when he was at Cantrell, when I was at Tanglewood. And through time, Cantrell really became the model of how you do compounding at larger scale, to where we wound up with 503B facilities, not just in Arkansas, but throughout the country. Through some chain of events, and he can probably explain it better than I can because I haven't studied this in a couple of years, but that 503B did have some action from FDA and then was closed down. Then I think there was a bankruptcy or something where the physical location itself was no longer under his control. But knowing there had been some issues with compounding with Cantrell Drug, staff was not comfortable signing off on this, and we wanted him to come have a conversation with the board. Dr. McCready, what did I miss?
I think that's all.
Okay.
I think the only other issue that I think we had, I think one of the issues we had, and maybe Dr. McCarley can kind of hit on that also. When they closed, we went to the facility and it was still had a lot of APIs and things in it that should have been disposed of. They weren't. It was just sort of like they just put their hands up and walked away. He did not submit surrenders on his permits. We sent a letter to him at the address of record, and it was returned to us as not being delivered. So those permits were never surrendered like they should have been. He had 2 wholesale permits and a retail permit. The retail permit and the 503B permit both required Arkansas licensed PICs. Obviously, when they left, they had no PICs, but they still had the licenses that they had not surrendered to us based on the files that I have. So that was one of our issues, was that he didn't keep in contact with the board and finalize everything out like we felt like he should have.
Yeah, those letters are on the
And that's on the tab.
applications. What's it under? That's the problem. Okay, so it's under tab number 5, and then also there's 2 tab 5s. That's what it is. One of them is just the application, so you guys can see it. And he did disclose on his application, answering yes to those questions, which is generally why we have someone up here.
We want to let him kind of explain things and then we can dig back through this, or do we want
That
to?
is however you want to run it.
I want to hear from him first, or you want to?
Go ahead. So thank y'all for allowing me to appear today. I do realize that Cantrell was shut down over a period of time. A lot of things happened that didn't go our way, despite many efforts over many years. The FDA was very difficult to deal with, and in my opinion, slow walked the process to where Cantrell was bled dry. We filed suit against the FDA in federal bankruptcy court, and the judge gave FDA 10 days to do another inspection. And the results of that inspection were pretty positive. The marks against us were relatively insignificant. We did a lot of good things through the years. We invested a lot of money in quality. I think that if the FDA had wanted to work with us, they could have. We had no product problems or patient problems in the market. We were told to recall all products in the market. So our accounts receivables went from several $1 million to zero in the matter of a phone call with that agency. So we had 170 some odd employees. I tried to hang on to as many of those employees as I could. I used personal funds. I reduced the number of employees to 90 and then to about 60. I used personal funds to pay payroll for those employees as long as I could. And we continued to work through the process as it was being slow walked. And I guess the long story short, we had to shut down. December of 2018, we shut down. And I was, at that point, the company was broke. The company had $0. I had been through 2 bankruptcies. And of course, those reorganization efforts didn't work. I borrowed more money and ran through that. The day that we were able to release our product under an FDA green light, the FDA also gave a green light for another company to release product that was a manufacturer, and those products were significantly cheaper than a custom-made compound. So that money was for naught, and we had to fold the company up. So that's kind of a history background. So the facility, it was a very complicated process through bankruptcy, and I learned a lot, and a lot of things struck me by surprise. But basically, I didn't know which way was up at a certain point. From just a human standpoint, the stress level was enormous. And I do apologize for oversights. I was handling a lot, and honestly, I'm lucky and blessed to be here today. I had a good family support. If I had not had that, I wouldn't be here. I put 30 years into that business, and I put everything that I had into it. So when the facility was shut down and all employees were released, it was up to me to handle a 22,000 square foot facility. I couldn't afford the electrical bills, which were thousands per month. So the electricity was shut off. I paid with my, well, let me say this. Robberies ensued as the public knew that it was a pharmacy, and had my dad move on site. He lived on site in a trailer for about 6 months without water and without sewer. So he would take his trailer to
Maumelle
Park to service it. And that was fairly effective, although we still continued to have some robberies. Had no electricity, no alarm system. The drugs, the retail drugs at that point, had been returned and destroyed. I paid for those destructions and for the chemical destructions. So I set up a game camera inside the building and got a photograph of one of the robbers. The police were able to identify that person, but the person was never arrested. And the person was also allegedly a daughter of a political figure in Arkansas. So, despite those efforts, I didn't get any resolution out of that. I continued to have to board up the pharmacy. That was me and my dad boarding up the pharmacy and installing more locks from the interior side to no avail. They kept breaking in and
Pilfering through whatever was there.
everything. So as far as the drugs that were, well, the destruction process, we had the retail drugs removed and expired drugs destroyed. We had the chemical destruction done by a third party that was paid by me. And then we had a North Little Rock warehouse that had IV fluids. So I rehired some staff with my own money and had those IV fluids, basically had $60,000 worth of IV fluids that we took razor blades and cut the bags and just let them drain. They were salt water or just sterile water. And destroyed all of that. And then I was running out of personal money, so we had 55-gallon drums of destroyed injectables stored in that warehouse from over the years, plus destruction from the FDA recall. We had to process an approved process by the FDA to destroy these things coming back from hospitals, which they're all liquid solutions. We put them into 55-gallon drums. Those drums were over 50 in number, to the best of my recollection. And at this point, I have no money. But I had to get these things destroyed. So I found enough funds to get them destroyed, and I personally helped the truck driver load over 50 barrels of drug onto a truck to go to a destruction facility. I also personally hired an 18-wheeler, certified 18-wheeler to handle controlled drugs that were still on Cantrell Road in the vault. There were 2 pallets and 1 18-wheeler. I don't know if you've ever seen 2 pallets on an 18-wheeler, but the proportions are way out of whack. So that semi was sealed up and documented and trucked off to a certified destruction facility. And that was a very expensive process. So anyway, that's kind of the history. I just wanted to understand the magnitude of it and what I was going through, both personally and professionally during that time. So I do apologize that I did not surrender the permits correctly, and that there was some oversight of, I believe, some succinylcholine API that was left. I don't remember large quantities. I remember large quantities of sodium chloride, but I think the board may have the inventory.
Yeah, and I'd say large quantities for Dr. McCarley being in a 22,000 square foot facility is a lot different than what most of us would think of as large quantities, because it was 3 to 5 gallon buckets, which is not much when you're talking about thousands of doses of stuff. But there were just a couple of rooms that it looked like got overlooked on that drug pool. So there were no controlled substances at all in that.
No controls.
And the other thing that, and it's not, this isn't a chastisement by any means, but it's really break-in robberies. It wasn't, or break-in burglaries, not like armed robberies, that they were in there like trying to steal copper and stuff out of the building too.
Right.
So it was, people kept breaking into what I think they thought was an abandoned building that might have drugs in it. And a lot of it was just destroying the property or trying to steal copper pipes and things like that. Not just, it wasn't like there's a huge amount of drug diversion or something from the break-in burglaries that he's talking about.
So the oversight, that was a 22,000 square foot facility that had very few windows except on the side, the Cantrell facing side. There's no electricity. The equipment stuff had been pilfered through and overturned and destroyed by these burglaries. So I hope the board understands that it was an oversight. And I believe these drugs, the actual APIs would fit into relatively few, less than 10 McKesson type totes. So it was one lab on the interior where these were located. Should I address the application?
But I was gonna see if they had any other questions on this part first, and then I know they're going to talk about the application.
Bill, I have a question. Can you go back over, you talked about the controlled substances that were in the vault. Can you go back over and tell, was that a reverse distributor that came in and took those and processed those? Or did you do a complete inventory of what was in there so that you had documentation of what was there?
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
was it, any Schedule IIs, was all that sent to the DEA and all of that taken care of?
Yeah, it was all to the letter of the law. And I don't know if they were considered a reverse distributor. I don't know. I just remember, and this is 7 years ago, I just remember that the truck was a special truck that was approved by DEA.
Was it Alabama? Where did the truck take it?
I think they took it to Tulsa.
Okay, I was gonna say it's either Alabama, El Dorado, or Tulsa, and those
Tulsa.
are DEA approved facilities. So we know they require
Right.
that paperwork for
I just wondered-
DEA.
Trying to get clarification of how that was handled.
And it was, I mean, when the pallets were loaded, the truck was closed, they put a special seal on
Yeah,
it.
put a
I
lead
took
seal on
pictures
it.
of that seal, and it was to the letter of the law.
And I will tell you that the inspectors, when they go into a pharmacy, I know that that was a large scale business, but they expect that, you said that you had barrels of stuff that had accumulated over the years. They expect that those expired products and things will be removed from the pharmacy in a timely manner, not over the years of collecting and collecting and collecting. Because, I mean, that stuff should be processed and cleared out rather than staying in a facility like that.
Okay.
I apologize if I missed this in the beginning, because I know this covered a good span, but what actually instigated the initial FDA issue? Like, what started this whole?
Well, my opinion, or?
The short version is he had inspection by FDA and they had a 483. And, we see 483s all the time, but once you're on the radar for something, you generally have a very difficult time getting off the radar. And with 483s, it dives deeper and deeper. Someone's going to tell me I'm completely uneducated on this, but Dale can correct me if he thinks I misspeak on it. When you are in a 503B facility, it's a CGMP process to where it is not prescriptive in how you get from the beginning to the end. So if it was a 797, 795 thing, like we see for 503A pharmacies, it's very clear to say you had to do this, you had to do this, you had to do this. And if you have any deviations or discrepancies or anything else, there's a process by which you have to prove it. On CGMP, it's like, hey, we expect you to get from A to B, and you are supposed to have a justifiable process for doing it. And then when we come in, we're going to question you on that. And if they disagree with your process, you're only looking backwards at it. So you don't have a cookbook approach of how to get from A to B. You have to be able to justify it. And if you have a process that you think is good, but you get an inspection they don't think it's good, then you're already in a hole, basically. Well, that's part of it, but like, Dell had a scan RDI machine to help try to identify any, fever causing agents that could be particulate matter of either drugs or biologic things or anything else. And, there's an argument, and you weren't the only one that ever had one, but some other folks did. And they said, this is one of the best tests that we could do. But then it's, well, does your microbiologist that's running it have a PhD in this that helped design the machine? It gets, this isn't disparaging of either Dell or FDA, but the communication between those two things are very difficult for you to understand on the business side of it as to what exactly is going to be expected when the trained FDA folks come in. Because you don't have the same training they do. They're not in the day-to-day operation to see how you work through it. Does that sound fairly accurate?
Yeah, I think one of the 483 write-ups was that the technician running the scan RDI sterility test machine didn't know how to identify a particular or specific microbe. But the scan RDI was a technology that could see just any living colony forming unit. So in our opinion, it didn't matter whether he could identify a specific type of bacteria. If there was a living organism in the samples that we tested, then that lot failed.
I guess what I'm trying to discern is the issue before the board has to do with what happened after all of this stuff. It's not actually about.
Well, so it's because of everything that happened with them. I think the FDA documents would say there were concerns with the appropriate production of products, and they required him to do a recall. Some of it was on the scan RDI, as I recall. I think at one point, and it wasn't just you that got hit with this, but there were some stoppers and vials that when they were more prone to coring upon entry, and then people after they'd used it in a facility might have thought there's particulate matter, but it was actually coring from the stoppers and vials. But it was vials that had been accessed, not vials that were produced and on the shelf and sealed. Anyway, I say all that to say, he's being forthright in the fact that if you Googled the company he was with before, there were FDA 483s in actions. He's asking now to open up a pharmacy doing compounding, and he's not asking to do sterile compounding, just non-sterile, but for the staff, we can't approve it at that point. He's having a conversation with you about what happened in the past so that you can basically make the decision if you are willing to allow him to try this new venture in the present.
Just one clarification. I thought a 483 was just an observation, not a warning letter.
Well, if you get a 483, 483 is one of the things that can happen. A 483 could result in a warning letter. It may or may not. But with a 483, when you get it, and he's lived this, you have to give a response to everything on the 483 to FDA, and you send them, here are plans of either we argue about this, or we don't agree, or here's how we're going to fix it. But the time process for that is very elongated. Like if we issue a warning letter in here, we're usually issuing a warning letter and asking you to acknowledge and have immediate corrective action. Dale, how long did it take you when you get a 483, you send them a response, how long did it take you to get a response back about whether they thought it was sufficient?
Typically, we were given 24 to 48 hours for response time and all hands on deck. The FDA had 30 days for a response, and typically that response didn't come until the 30th day, and likely with another question, and then they get another 30 days. So it was a very drawn out process.
Not the exact timeline, but I think they were inspected in like 2013 and they received a warning letter 2 years later, maybe. And then they were inspected in 2016. There was a court injunction that stopped your compounding, made you recall all your products. Is that correct? And then in 2018, they had another inspection and they actually got a letter that said they could go forward with business in 2018, I believe. And then by this point, I think they were at the point where they were financially strapped. It was too far gone. But the process was 5 or 6 years, I think, or so and I don't know if the 13 inspection was the first 483 you got. I think it had 12 observations and the one in 2016 had 12 observations. So it was cumulative, but his responses were required to be in rather quickly. And like I said, the warning letter was 2 years out from what I'm reading from the inspection in 2013. And then it just kind of snowballed.
So the application that's been submitted is to the Board of Pharmacy to open a retail pharmacy.
Yes.
Doing non-sterile compounding.
Yep.
Now, due to interstate commerce clause, would the FDA still, they could still come in and inspect?
Well, my observation on that, and observation's a weird word when you're talking about FDA, but if they had a complaint that something was being manufactured or did not follow the exceptions in section 503A of federal law. So if there's an ingredient that FDA says you cannot compound this, and you're at a 503A and they catch you compounding it, domperidone would be one that would come to mind. They could use the fact that you do not meet the exemptions of 503A and come in and inspect you like you're a manufacturer at full CGMP standards because you're not supposed to be doing that. If they had a complaint of patient harm or something through MedWatch report or had a pattern, they can come in and inspect you. But those issues are very seldomly seen. And if you are not compounding something that's illegal to compound, you should be very, very low on a risk list for that as well.
And this may not have anything to do with this situation, but just for clarification, because drugs are in interstate commerce, the FDA has the authority right down to the tablet that if they wanted to, they could come in and inspect. Is that true?
I believe that is likely correct. There's some weird stuff when you start dealing with compounding because you're trying to meet the exemptions of 503A, and I think they have to make a determination whether or not you're out of that. Generally, if it's an adulterated product, misbranded product, or something that couldn't be prepared, it's very quickly deemed to not met the exemption criteria of A, and it throws it into their purview.
So it's probably great to understand the background and everything that he's gone through and was involved with. But we're really looking at this new application with all that in the background.
Well, and
It happened.
the case that we would have had on this years ago, when the corporation closes, goes bankrupt, and ceases to exist completely, I mean, there's nothing to enforce on that company anymore. Like there's no money, there's no permit, there's nothing.
Could I make,
We're headed to this, but that was a long time ago. What have you been doing since then?
so that's what I was, wanted to make the point that I have been pharmacist in charge of 2 Arkansas pharmacies in this last 7 years, actually in the last 3 years. So one was a Walgreens pharmacy, one of the busiest Walgreens pharmacies in the state, in Rogers, Arkansas, and then Livewell Pharmacy, a compounding pharmacy in Bentonville. So I have been pharmacist in charge, and as far as I know, remain a pharmacist in good standing with the board.
And you're current and up to date with the USP guidelines? You understand the new guidelines and all of that? Have you been practicing under the current USP guidelines?
Yes. I guess USP 800 might be an exception. I'm not sure where the board stands on USP 800.
The stepbrother we don't talk about.
Okay. Strike that comment.
Yeah. I mean, this board's heard me say it before, and these are the kind of things that people will replay and use against me later because it'll be on YouTube. But, you know, in many ways, USP 795, 797 are patient protection. 800 is about staff protection, much like OSHA or anything else. And it's one of those things like if you're not protecting your staff, it's going to bite you in the rear no matter what. Versus if you're not protecting patients and doing it right, we're going to bite you in the rear. So.
But just to be clear, I guess the ultimate question is, do we want to give a second bite at the apple? And my question, what is staff's recommendation?
Our recommendation was to let you decide. in our discussions with Dale, he's only looking, I think, at doing non-sterile at this point. And I mean, you probably want to know kind of what business he's trying to do going forward, because it is different. And that's why he's here.
Are we going to review the application?
You got it. Yeah. There's another just 5 that's just the application. Back up one, Clint.
Have,
It's under Arkansas compound.
Have we discussed what your plan is moving forward? Like,
No,
Is
I'd be glad to.
yeah, can we hear that?
Okay. So I have been a pick for the last 2 years in Bentonville at a compounding pharmacy. But I've been my own boss for 30 years. So that's a little bit limiting or difficult. But my plans are, I leased an 800 square foot facility, which is very small. And my plans are to be the sole pharmacist. I have a daughter-in-law that would like for me to train her as a technician. She's not applied for a technician permit yet. But the idea is to be low volume and high quality. I do not want to fill 150 to 200 prescriptions a day, and at the same time try to make sure that a young person in a lab is doing things correctly. And I don't want to have to operate a drive-through and answer the phone and insurance claims and all the things that you guys know so well that interrupts your day 1,000 times, and be responsible for compounding. So this will be compounding only. It will be non-sterile only. I don't anticipate that changing, but I would reserve the right to, if I see a need or there is a patient need, I would certainly come back to the board at some future point in time. But I do not see that happening. I would prefer to stay away from sterile. I've had too much history and too much PTSD from all that. So.
A whole lot more investment too.
A whole lot more investment.
But I mean, because the facility, my understanding, and tell me if it's wrong, is it's not necessarily completely closed door, but for the most part, it's closed door. You just want a compounding facility.
Yeah.
A lot of it's going to be hormone replacement, reaching out to different prescribers or specializing in that to connect, to send directly to their patients.
Right. All patient specific, dermatology, hormones, veterinary, but still patient specific. We will utilize common courier for deliveries, but try to keep it in Arkansas. A lot of physicians are going to pharmacies outside the state for mail order type compounds, and I would like to keep it in Arkansas and keep it local and a relationship there.
You would have to go out and speak to these doctors and get them sending prescriptions to you.
Correct.
The patients won't be coming in necessarily. The doctor would send it to you, you would fill it and deliver it to the patient, more or less.
Correct.
And when we inspect a new pharmacy, I mean, doesn't it basically have to be ready to go?
No, what we are generally looking at, which is fairly de minimis, is that you've got a facility, it's got hot and cold running water, you can lock the doors so that we can tell that it's actually a building that's going to be a pharmacy. If it was a sterile compounding facility, you have to show us all the certifications for the air pressures and everything else before you can do any sterile compounding. Many pharmacies, there have been some sidebars even in the last week or so, that they're to the point in construction where you can tell this is actually going to be a pharmacy, and we will grant their permit with the expectation that they're going to be operational to the public within 90 days. If they know that it's going to take them more than 90 days to finish from that point, we can sign basically a memorandum with them that they're not going to be open within 90 days, and it postpones that expected opening to a later date, which they contact the board and we release the MOU and they open. That is because once you have a retail permit, it's required to be open 40 hours a week. And if we give you a permit and you just don't use it for more than that initial 90 days, and we go, well, apparently you don't need this permit because you're not open at all, or you're not open your 40 hours, give it back to us. That's kind of where we've been in the past. I've had a couple pharmacists say, well, the problem is by the time we get to where there's running water in the place, it's basically ready to open. And I have seen construction where that is the last thing that they want to turn on, but in most instances, it's generally, to me at least, not. So it's not like turnkey ready, but the problems we saw, especially earlier in my career here, we would get applications and it would be an address and it would say like suite 120. And then a week later, we'd see one for suite 142, suite 220. And then when you had tools to do like Google Earth, you would look and it would be a mini storage warehouse that another state had granted multiple pharmacy permits to where you pull up your truck and roll up the door and there's a 10 by 10 non-air conditioned thing. So we do not permit anyone without having a look at the physical facility ourselves to make sure it's actually something that could be a pharmacy and could operate as intended, or if it's out of state until you've even had an operational inspection satisfactory to the board. We don't just take that, hey, you got a permit or you had a pre-inspection before it ever operated. Like it has to be an operational pharmacy inspection out of state.
Dr. Carley, there's one error in the application. The landlord didn't know their own address, so the lease had the wrong address. So it should be 2111 East Central Avenue, Suite 5. And the facility is, it's ready for
To
inspection.
be looked at. Okay.
And for the board's knowledge, we do have an ESCO, 6-foot ESCO powder hood,
Okay.
double HEPA filtered powder hood. We have analytical balances that with PK software, which is the standard in compounding, the balance will be integrated with the formulas so that there's not decimal place errors.
Yeah, when you weigh it, you click on the screen, you weigh it, automatically loads it in the formula to be sure it's met.
Barcodes your chemical and it reads it against the formula. And if you're off by greater than whatever tolerance you've put in there,
It flags it.
What is this near on Central? 2111 East, I think you said 2111 East Central.
Yeah, so the new Walmart campus is across the street. Yeah, so Central is so that campus is kind of a rectangle, and the north end of the campus borders Central Avenue. So there's the dentist office, there's that's on the opposite corner. So on a 4-corner intersection, there's a 7 Brew, there was a White Oak station, and then these were actually offices built for Walmart vendors. It looked like
Everything
like
up there.
a retail center, but maybe an upscale retail center.
So we've heard the mechanism of what caused, a series of 483s and the FDA was after you. I guess, how can we have some assurance that you understood how you could prevent that problem from occurring again? I mean, that's ultimately the question, right?
I would say that I've got, if any pharmacist has a good understanding of what's required to produce a quality product, I do. And also in the background information, I forgot to point out that we did, before the recall, We had three separate independent third parties that said we were in compliance with GMP. And I, at that point, as a CEO, I was relying on people that I'd hired that were supposedly experts. And I still believe we were in good faith compliance.
So these were hired consultants that, okay.
Yes, sir.
Did the board have any inspection issues with that pharmacy?
Back in the day, but I mean, it's been years ago. And part of it is, for us, when there's a 483, like that's the FDA saying that they don't believe it meets the level that's required by FDA. But since it's not a direct linear approach, it's a little bit different. I can't even remember if we had, I can't remember when Dr. Robertson got his full CGMP training, and it's still not to the level of FDA inspectors. So, I mean, we could look at it and go, you know what, that'd be a problem. Like that would be a problem for us, just like it was FDA. But when it shut down, our case was over.
Dr. McCarley, during the time you've been a pick at the compounding pharmacy in Bentonville, have there been any issues with the board during that time period? Or any issues with
We had
the
one
inspectors?
inspection under my leadership as pick, and we had a passing inspection, but a notation that some compounds being sent for procedures, in-office procedures, needed to be patient-specific. And I called Dr. McCready and discussed that with her, and we immediately changed to patient-specific.
Is that one of those like lidocaine things we hear all the time?
Yes, that was a benzocaine, lidocaine, tetracaine topical.
We get numbing agents, and we often will find that clinics will call in, and when all of a sudden you go back and pull your record, they're like, well, for some reason we filled for one patient that keeps using this clinic 8 times and they want larger quantities, and you come to find out it's a fake patient or someone who works there, because they don't want to say a script for each patient that's their unique script. It's the clinics get inventive and try to do a workaround for those procedures to have stock meds when they shouldn't.
So do we want to kind of go down the line and talk about what people think? I mean, we're looking at a whole different business model, so.
I mean, if you're doing hormones, some of that's going to be considered hazardous, but that's why he's got that negative pressure hood. Or hood. Non-sterile.
We'll start with Beth Ann.
I have no problem with it.
I don't have any issues, particularly because
800 would say.
he's been the pick somewhere and doing the exact same thing that he's asking to do, and we didn't have any significant issues with it. I don't have any problems with it.
I have some confidence in what Lynn said, so I'll be okay with it.
I have any concerns?
Yeah, we were just having a sidebar of, if it's double HEPA filtered, whether or not you're supposed to have a negative pressure room, but that's a USP 800 issue, not in our rules right now, but it's from the safety side of your staff. Lynn probably knows that as well as I do.
For compliance with 800, it's good plus the room.
Right, correct.
So does that mean he has to have or?
It meets the technicality that right now we don't have full USP cited, But it's one of those things, if it goes bad, it's just like you violated OSHA on the federal level. So it's, hey, I realize the elevator in my building might not meet OSHA, but it's working pretty well. But if it collapses, then good luck.
You have any plans around this?
Around 800,
Um,
USP 800. I can address USP 800 when it becomes a requirement. Since I'm going to be the only staff member there.
fair.
Anyone want to attempt to make a motion, or do we have any more questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the permit.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
I'm guessing that's for his request to be able to do non-sterile. He's already acknowledged if he ever wants to get in sterile, he knows he can come back and address that.
I was wondering if we had to do an MOU to say like, this is,
I think you're approving his application as presented here, and we've got this whole thing as part of it. I mean, I don't doubt at all that Dale understands that and is going to be calling us going, hey, man, I'm thinking about such and such. Because he's probably going to have that conversation with a bunch of people like, tell me how crazy I am right now. Because he knows that it's, you know, a whole nother level of scrutiny and everything else. But with that, we'll set him up for inspection and process. All right. Good luck. Thanks, man.
Thank you, board.
Quick break.
I'm blinking down here.
Yes.
Ready? We are back a couple minutes early for our 2:15. If you guys want to introduce yourselves, I can help kick this off.
Sure. I'm Rachel Bunch. I'm the Executive Director of the Arkansas Healthcare Association.
Press it harder than that. There you go.
Okay, and I'm Emily Holton. I'm a long-term care pharmacy consultant.
All right. Thank you, Rachel and Emily, for being with us today. As the board will probably recall, I think most of you have heard that for a while that we are going to have some requests on this. We're going to discuss it. We've had sit down a couple of times with Rachel and crew talking about emergency kits. In many ways, this is the ever evolving changes that we see in long-term care, especially in I've said it before in front of this board, the difference in patients, the difference in the approaches of how long-term care is utilized. I've said this many times before today, but when I misspeak, they are free to correct me. But the generalization I give is, when I was a kid growing up, if somebody went into a nursing home, that's basically the last place that they went. They were going to a nursing home because that was the care they had left in their lives. In many instances today, they see a much higher frequency of admissions to nursing homes. Nursing homes are in many ways used as long-term acute care, step-down units, or rehab units, especially in communities where there are not other rehabilitation units. I think most of us have seen a loved one go to a nursing home from the hospital on their way to get back to home or to a lower level of care. With that, our emergency kits, and they have been called emergency kits throughout time at the Board of Pharmacy because that is the language that DEA, I think, originally provided to allow for non-patient specific drugs to be a pharmacy's property in a home for intent when people in the home needed acute care that was otherwise not reachable in the immediacy of need. In many ways, if you look at our rules, a lot of this is intended for like first dose use. We have some proposed rules that are in the executive branch right now that will help to clarify some of that, as well as an answer to a recent statute that we have to adopt emergency kits for detox units. So this is not part of that discussion. That is to come. The board's already approved that language for executive review. But it's, looking at the implementation of these, I think some confusion that's happened over the last few years when we quit requiring nursing home consultants to pass a test or to have extra education, and just, I think, is a whole nother generation of people are involved in this. I think there was some confusion about quantities in kits or how you could utilize multiple kits based on sizes of facilities. So we've helped, and Rachel's done a lot of education through her membership on that, helping explain that this is the total quantity for each section, not for every single drug cumulatively or in addition to in the sections, helping to educate people how they could get 2 kits or 3 kits. The board was asked, does this have to be a separate kit, or could you double the quantity, especially if they have an electronic device or I hate to say robotic, but a robotic dispensing machine to hold those emergency kits? The board clarified that if you've got more than X beds, you could just have a double size kit. It does not necessarily have to be 2 separate kits. With that, working with Long-Term Care Association, there were some specific needs that they felt like were worth addressing that we're bringing to you today. Some of it is around quantities, and some of it is about the breadth of possible medications that could be in emergency kits. The other reminder that we always say, I bet Emily could speak to this as well, is not everybody wants everything in this kit. You get in some facilities, and this prescriber wants antibiotic A, not antibiotic B. So they can choose, not necessarily both, but one or the other. Same thing with controlled substances. Some places they're going to look at this and go, we only want hydrocodone 5, 325, not 10. We're not going to deal very much with oxy, but we do want morphine. Like, this allows them to pick from these variables to build the kit that works right for that facility. In the Wayback Machine, when I got to the Board of Pharmacy, the Board of Pharmacy staff had to review and sign off on every emergency kit or every emergency kit change for every long-term care facility in the state of Arkansas. And even if there were no changes, we had to sign off on it annually. And how many nursing homes do we have in the state? 100 and
226.
yeah, it was 170, like 9 at the time, just 20 years ago. So it was hundreds of documents a year. And the board got away from having the micromanagement of exactly what was in each and every kit to having these bulk lists to where as long as you were in compliance with the list, it did not have to have a waiver or anything from the board. I'll pause there to see if I've missed anything for you guys, and then we can probably dive into the specific request on the list. Well, so if you look at page 1 of this, the very top paragraph is not part of the rule itself. And actually, we've got the old rule citation on this. But so if you've got up to 70 beds, at one point it was 75. And I think Rachel at one point said, well, the classification is actually the number of 70, not 75, or someone else told me that, but I'm accredited.
Is the minimum number of beds you have to have a licensed nursing facility. And then they go from anywhere from 70 up to 140.
Yeah. There's a handful that are below 70. They must have been grandfathered or something. They're like 59 or 57. It's weird numbers. But then up above 70. So basically the vast majority of places, there's only a few that would be below the 70 when I checked on the CMS rules. So most of them are already going to be able to have up to 2 kits. A lot of those, my understanding is it will be a large enough facility that they literally have like a wing and B wing, and they want a kit at each one because it's easier to track by unit rather than having staff go from unit B all the way to A and try to withdraw a drug and track it that way. And then if you've got over 120 beds, you could have 3 kits. The quantities, so if you flip over to the backside of that, it's on analgesics. Right now it's only 12. And it could be 2 of each of those 6 drugs, pick 4 drugs and have 3 of each, 4 of one, 2 of one. It's however the number goes. But I think part of the request is if you have even 70 beds, the kit does not have to be resupplied for 72 hours. So part of the thinking that I've had to come around to is this is not an immediate kit. This is a 3-day kit. This is for up to 72 hours of care. So whether it's a weekend or care coverage issue or just they replenish it every 3 days, it's not a 1-day supply, it's a 3-day supply. So their request was about this. They have pulled out data and probably have some about stat orders, emergency orders, and everything else. DEA only allows a first dose generally of a script. We're working on some of those interpretations to come out of the emergency kit unless you just have an emergency kit script. That is a major adjustment that I think a lot of people did not realize that is being educated on around the country. I attribute that to some people asked an official question and got an official answer from DEA that is not the answer that I would have tried to get from DEA, but it's the one we're dealing with. Does that help, Brian?
Yes.
This is only the list on nursing homes. If there was a question on crisis stabilization units, we'd have a similar conversation with the board. So if there are any needs that, I know you guys had helped manage one at one point, if there were needs on that, that'd be a separate issue. I know one thing, and we previously addressed like over number 9 miscellaneous, moving clindamycin. I think someone thought it was a macrolide and they requested that, but they want to keep the quantity. If we leave it right where it is, you automatically have that quantity, and I don't know that you really need to move anything on it.
No, it's not a macrolide.
No,
It's structurally related. It's a glucosamide.
Yeah. Or a leucocinamide.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah.
And some of them, they gave us specific numbers. And some of them, it was just like we're requesting on anticoagulants, depending on the facility. And the other thing that I have probably been educated on, like I would say, well, when in the world would you start a patient on Eliquis, for instance, in a nursing home? But it's not that they're getting started on it. Emily, you see this. It's they're already on it. They arrive on Saturday afternoon and they need their next dose quickly, but they may not need 2.5 milligram. They may need 5 oftentimes.
The only other thing I would add, John, just global perspective of nursing homes in Arkansas. In December of last year, we saw pre-pandemic levels of census in the facility. So, we took a big dip in census across the state. It's been rebuilding quickly, but as of December, we're right above where we were March of 2020. So the population is growing very quickly.
Yeah, there was a time when you would say a facility is licensed for X number of beds, but they never are full.
Yeah, for
And-
many years, Arkansas had one of the lowest census numbers in the country for nursing homes. The last I checked, we were close to 80% statewide of the licensed beds. And I expect that to continue to rise. But we've seen it surpass the COVID number just recently, but we expect that to keep growing. So that shows you a little bit of the increase in demand with the facilities.
So on the ones where they don't specify a number and it just says increase, what's the direction there?
I'm looking at these ladies.
I mean,
I mean, they were.
I think it's an ask. So when we were communicating with John, we'd heard from a number of our member pharmacies that serve our facilities. And I think it was just an ask. They were saying, these are the things that we get requests for commonly, or things that our facilities or prescribers ask for. So I sent all of those requests that I got from our member pharmacies and facilities over to John.
And I think if you're looking at, anticoagulants, and Dr. Horton, I can see her mouthing like Eliquis oftentimes going to be a 5 milligram dose. Well, if you have 3 people come in that need their first dose of Eliquis and they needed 5 milligrams, well, you've already run through half your supply. Well, what about the person who comes in and needs warfarin, but they don't need 1 milligram or 2.5, they need 5.5 milligrams. And you're like, well, how do we make that work? Well, we can do 3 1s and a 2.5, or 2 2.5s and half of one. Like the math on anticoagulation is a little more complex than just, hey, we got to get you a dose. We got to get you one of the right dose. So like on that, did you guys have an idea? Is it 6 to 12 or is it?
I don't think there was a specific on that one.
Yeah, I'm unaware of a specific number. I kind of was asking the same thing. Did we have a specific ask?
I think you guys could pick a number. I think they're happy if they can get any increase in it. But if you're using a couple of those drugs, you get into some quantity pretty quick.
Could it be drug specific rather than anticoagulant specific?
When we've done it as a group like that and you get a maximum quantity for the overall group, I think it helps them a little bit with formulary management to figure out what their approach is, because they figure out that this is our APRN. Half of this is people coming to the facility with existing doses. So you kind of need.
Like warfarin would be its own little, just that one specifically, because of, like you said, 5.5, like there's just a lot of tablets required to get to some of those doses.
You want to separate it out? We can do that.
Well, then you get a difference between,
Let them figure it out.
Figure that out. I think the risk of them not having it's more than having.
I agree. I didn't want them to have to use up all their tablets on warfarin and not have tablets left for.
Especially in that one class of drugs, we might increase it
Significantly.
a little more than others.
Yeah.
That's something we have.
I mean, it's not an abuse principle.
Right.
Yeah, well, the way we've done this in the past, the board has adopted basically a list of guidelines. When we've had, we get to the point where we have multiple requests or identify major needs, we bring it back to the board. The other risk is, a couple of years ago, we had somebody come in and they're like, we really need albuterol HFA. And I'm going, well, that's a no-brainer. So we'll bring them in for it. But it's much better to work with the association and have a larger ask and take care of a whole bunch of issues. Otherwise, we're going to micromanage this and we're going to have a request every time we have a meeting.
Just to decide the quantities here or the ones that don't have a.
There's only a couple, 2 or 3 that don't have a quantity.
Brenda said 18.
Okay, I'm seeing 18.
I mean, I think that we're nailing a little bit of jello to the wall, but I know 18 is a whole lot better than 6. And I think it addresses Dr. Davenport's issue of, well, if you're doing warfarin and you end up having to use 4 tablets on somebody, that just took a big number out. I'll stop it, or I'll start at A to check your temperature of, are you comfortable with this number? Do you want to leave it, or do you want to propose a different number on the analgesic request?
And the ask is for 24.
That was their suggestion. And I know they had higher requests than what they brought us.
Definitely.
Portion of sulfate, is that per mil?
It's morphine sulfate's in is it a 5 mil container? Or is it 20? Yeah, it's 20 mil container.
So if they have that, that's 20 other 20. Or is that one?
We count that as one
That's one, okay.
because oftentimes they're going to use more than a
No,
mil.
that's fine. I just clarify it so there's not a question.
Yeah. There's language that it's supposed to be single dose unless it's not available. Imagine some people probably have like ampules or injectable for that.
Not that I see, but
I was going to say, do you see any injectable on that? For a while, people would get the injectable and just use it orally.
I don't see any injectable.
Okay.
One bottle.
And we did not want them repackaging it because it changes the dating.
I was going to say, it
allowed
did used to be
for it.
syringes, but now we've gone to bottles. So
And some of these products, that and like some of the benzos, they are only supposed to be dosed with the calibrated syringe from the company. And so we have to accept that if they have that drug, they have like a little mini stock bottle of it, because otherwise you risk having errors in incorrectly calibrated syringes for dosing. Yeah. Yeah, they're very expensive, but there are some like 503Bs, I think, that repackage that. And there may be just some repackagers that do. Yeah. So what do y'all want to do with A? Ronnie gives me a thumbs up, 24.
Good with that?
Okay. We're down under anti-infectives, specifically oral doses penicillins. The request is twofold: to allow both Augmentin 500 and Augmentin 875 and increase the doses from 6 to 10 overall. Go with both of those?
Yeah.
Okay. Going down number 8, antifungals, adding where it's not just fluconazole 100, but also giving the option for 150. Y'all need more doses of that? 3 good?
We'll take whatever you give us, but, no, that's what they asked for there.
And do you definitely want it as or, not and?
3
We'll
choices.
decide ahead of time and you do or.
I'm like, you've got 3 different drugs, 2 of each would be 6. Leave the clindamycin, keep the quantity. Anti-coag, Dr. McCready suggested 18.
Yeah.
Great.
Anti-nauseants, adding promethazine suppositories to it. Any problems with that?
I think so, but I don't think you should leave the word or, because on both of those, if you or, it doesn't mean both. It's one or the other.
You could use either one,
Yeah,
but
but.
Don't
But then you're limited.
Can't have- Yeah, lots of
well,
12.
they come apart. Like you could, they're going to be refrigerated.
12, I mean, you're.
Box size of that is 12.
6, so I think that's what, I mean, could we just make that 12?
Maximum quantity of 12. Yeah, I'll put tablet or suppository.
I should have put and or. You can have both.
Yeah, I'm saying you could have both. Anytime it's on this, it's or, it's not an either or.
Oh,
It's,
okay.
you could choose one, or it could be and/or.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a note to replace it with that. Hypertensive crisis medications, our discussion on that is over the years, we've added greatly to that as far as when we did this review like 7 years ago. So you have more potential meds than you had doses. So they were asking basically for an increase in quantity on it.
Like 18. Brenda's suggestion?
There's like 11 or 12 meds. I think that's,
24.
Hypertensive crisis seems to be a misnomer because you're not going to use an ER product for a crisis.
I
So
know,
just call it hypertension.
Yeah.
just say hypertensive medications.
Sure.
I'll remove crisis. I don't think-
Potassium is not for hypertension. I don't know where you stick it, but it's not for hypertension.
I'm sorry, I was looking at,
Potassium.
On the services on
They-
emergency versus
it-
emergency.
it's under, I think that was originally under the cardiac meds, even though it wound up in the hypertensive because they were using it with diuretics. Well, even though I've been here a long time, I inherited some of this mess.
Dr. Richmond is a literal person. He don't want you putting that under the wrong category.
I'll do 24.
On this,
Not hurting my feelings at all.
on this one, the request that never mind, sorry. On this increase where it had increased quantities here, and it had 6.
They said 24.
Yes, okay, okay.
That's more than I thought they were going to say. Seizure control meds. There was a request from somebody about pregabalin. I don't know that it's a big issue either way, since it is a control, but I don't know how many people are going to use it. Either way, I think for immediate use for seizure control, there was a request for increases in like the diazepam, lorazepam, and I think we would erase the number 4 at the end of each one because it looked like it was prescriptive. You could only do 4 of each and give them flexibility.
What's the intent? Is it to active seizing?
Well, and so that's, I kind of inherited this list from just a poll from the pharmacies. And I said, I don't really see a lot of the orders for seizure for pregabalin. It's mostly for pain.
Yeah.
And so that's why she'd emailed Curtly and said we could probably remove that because we do have lots of other pain options in this kit list already. But if you all are feeling giving, we did have a constituent request, Lyrica.
What about the diazepam rectal gel? Do you use that ever?
I do see resident specific orders for it, but I don't ever really see it
They'd
used.
probably rather just use injection at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I have like 15 facilities and I think I can name one where I see that rectal gel.
And it's expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it goes in the emergency box and is never used, that's going to cost
Waste
pharmacy a bunch of money.
Did we figure out an increased quantity? Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't a specific ask there.
On the pregabalin.
Well, on the,
Diazepam.
I think pregabalin, if you really wanted it, would go back to pain management more appropriately than seizure. But I think his question is about what kind of quantities do you think you need on diazepam, lorazepam injection? 12? 12, increase it 50% helps it. Three days. 70 people. And it's probably going to be used for, that's not the only reason you'd use that.
Let's go to 12.
I've heard 12. Any arguments from board on 12 for that? Y'all, I mean, gabaline, is it a big enough deal? You want it on pain meds or let it be?
That was one of the only drugs I said, I'm not sure I can defend this one
Okay.
to the board.
How
Just
about we
because
just pass on it?
Yeah,
If it comes up, because if it comes up later and there's some specific reason, they're going to let you know and you guys can let us know.
yeah. It was one pharmacy that had had it before. We can follow up with them.
I bet they ended up having like a couple of patients that they ended up having stat orders on or came in on it.
Well, and sometimes it's very provider area specific.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking they
If they have
came
one
in.
home that has a provider who really loves this drug, it probably does create some issue for them.
Non-controlled seizure meds, of course, Dival Pro-X, Sprinkle, levetiracetam, which a lot of people are going to use Keppra oxcarbate. Those three added to the list. Any heartburn over that? And then quantity number. 5 drugs.
Well, again.
For drugs. Yeah.
16. Double it. Dr. McCready asked, I'm back on actually anti-hyperglycemics. I don't feel strongly about this. When we used to have insulin and it was basically like regular insulin. And I think it was 7 years ago. It may have been 17 years ago, if my memory is failing me. But we gave flexibility where it could be regular insulin, Lispro, Glargine, basically whichever insulin they want in that facility, and they could have basically 2 bottles of it. We could rename that to say, et cetera, or the fear I think at the time was if it just said insulin 2 bottles, that people assumed it was only one insulin or
Regular.
yeah. You could have all the regular you want in the world, but they'd rather get it on the pharmacy side as part of the emergency kit than as an OTC. You can't hardly bill for the OTC. Anything else y'all forgot to give me? Board members, any other issues on this?
You need a motion on this?
I would like a motion for the updated quantities on the list, and I can probably get it fixed in the next couple of days and get it reposted to our website.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
I will work on getting the list updated. I will correct the citation for where it appears in the official Code of Arkansas rules at this point. Quantities, Rachel, I'll send it to you guys to make sure I didn't miss anything on it. And all's good. Well, you guys start using it and we'll get it posted on our website.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Anything else? Our staff, tomorrow, start at 9 o'clock. Ashley, what do you have on tap for us?
Hearings, right?
I think tomorrow is hearings all day. Yeah. I think with that, we can adjourn for the day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.